My name's Jenna Harper, and I've learned early on to keep my power under wraps. It was a humid Saturday night when my older sister hosted her engagement party at our folks' place. The whole crew showed up, uncles, cousins, old neighbors who still acted like they had front row seats to my story. The dining room was packed, laughter bouncing off the walls, wine flowing like it was a fountain. But I could always feel those eyes, like I was the odd piece in a family puzzle. "You still driving that beat-up blue sedan?" someone asked loud enough for a few snickers. My sister shot me a look dripping with fake concern. "Oh, Jenna's just practical. She's always been good at making do." Her fiancé chuckled politely, clueless about the jab. But I caught it, everyone did. I just smiled, took a slow sip of my water. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Then, just as the plates were being cleared, her fiancé leaned over casually and asked, "Hey Jenna, this might be random, but did you have anything to do with that private jet I spotted in Santorini last weekend?" It had Harper Holdings written on the side. The room went dead silent. Forks paused midair. I just smiled softly and said, "Yeah. That's me." This was my life, every family get-together, the same routine. Cheerful questions that weren't really questions, polite comments laced with judgment. They saw me as the black sheep. The daughter who never settled down, who lived halfway across the country, who never brought dates home, who never plastered baby showers or beach selfies all over social media. At first, I tried harder. I sent gifts, remembered birthdays, offered to pick up dinner tabs, thinking maybe it'd change their tune. But it only backfired. One year, I even offered to cover my niece's school fees. My sister spun it like I was trying to buy her love. After that, I stopped. I moved to Portland when I was 23 and barely looked back. They called it running away. I called it catching my breath. Those early years were tough, hopping between odd jobs, renting a basement with no windows, living on rice and eggs. I started a little side gig, just a simple app for freelance delivery drivers to manage their routes better. It didn't even have a name at first. I'd code at night, do customer support all day, and burn out more times than I can count. But 3 years in, a logistics company in Dubai found my app and asked if I'd ever thought about scaling it. I hadn't, but I did. With a lot of grit and even more coffee, I grew it. We raised seed funding, then a Series A. By 36, I had a team, an office, international clients, and a confidential sale that made me richer than my folks had ever imagined. I still drove that old blue sedan. Didn't want a flashier car, it kept things simple. But to my family, none of that mattered. All they saw was what I didn't say. No designer labels, no bragging, no Instagram updates about my trips. So they filled the gaps with whatever story they wanted. Jenna's always been independent, my mom would say at family dinners, smiling tight like it hurt. My aunt whispered at Thanksgiving, "At least your sister turned out normal." At first, it stung. Then I laughed it off. Now? It's just background noise I tune out completely. They assumed I was broke because I didn't flaunt wealth like they expected. Because I didn't beg for their approval or scramble for a seat at a table they built on empty praise. Still, I showed up that night, not for them, but for me. Watching their faces freeze when that jet came up? That was never part of the plan. But I won't lie, it felt damn good. There was a time I thought maybe, just maybe, I could earn my way back into their good graces. I believed, naively, that family love was something you could negotiate. If I worked hard enough, gave enough, proved myself enough, maybe they'd finally see me, not just as the odd one out, but as someone worth their attention. When I was 29, I ended up in the hospital with a burst appendix that turned septic. I spent weeks in recovery. Not a single call, no cards, no messages. My roommate then, a guy I barely knew from a Craigslist ad, brought me soup and helped me shower. My own mother? She didn't even know I nearly died. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. That was the last time I expected anything from them. I stopped sending holiday wishes, let birthdays pass without a word, and quietly pulled back, so slowly no one really noticed. Or maybe they did, but their pride kept them silent. But pulling away emotionally didn't mean I cut them out completely. I still showed up at big family events. I still brought thoughtful presents. I played the role of the quirky, distant sister because it was easier than explaining why I kept my distance, and honestly, somewhere deep down, I still hoped, despite everything, that maybe one day they'd genuinely ask what I was working on. That they'd see me not as the cautionary example, but as someone who'd forged her own path and survived. It never happened. When my business took off, I kept it to myself. Not when I hired my first employee. Not when we hit 2 million in recurring revenue. Not even when I signed the acquisition deal that paid me enough to retire twice over. What would have been the point? They wouldn't have believed me. Or worse, they'd twist the truth. My mom would have accused me of bragging. My sister would have told everyone I was making it up. So I learned to keep my wins private. I funneled my earnings into a new project, a company I didn't name after myself on purpose, something sustainable, something that created jobs. I stayed out of the spotlight. Flew coach even when I could have afforded first class. My team knew who I was, my partners respected me, and that was enough. But it wasn't just about the money. It was me. I stopped needing to prove my worth to anyone. I no longer felt the sting of being left out. I had quietly built my own table, one piece at a time. Still, it was pretty ironic that after all those years of shrinking myself to dodge judgment, the truth was about to land on their laps, served not by me, but by the man my sister was about to marry, and I knew, deep down, she'd hate it. Because in her world, there was only space for one success story, and she'd already claimed that spot. Complete with the diamond ring, the planned honeymoon, the matching luggage she wouldn't stop flaunting on Instagram. I didn't come that night to ruin anything, I really didn't. But when life hands you a moment like that, you don't shy away. You hold your glass steady, flash your best smile, and let the truth sparkle on the table, undeniable and loud. The whole evening was set to be perfect. White fairy lights twinkled along the backyard fence. The long table was dressed in navy cloth with gold cutlery. So classy, my sister said, smiling without warmth. They'd hired a private chef. Servers in black glided silently between courses. Soft jazz floated through hidden speakers. It was her show, choreographed down to the second. I arrived 20 minutes late on purpose, not to cause a scene, just enough to dodge the forced smiles and empty small talk. Parked a block away, slipped on heels with no designer label, and sneaked in through the side gate with the kind of confidence you get when you've been underestimated your whole life. Mom met me by the patio doors, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Cassie, we weren't sure you'd show," which was code for, "we hoped you wouldn't." A few seconds later, my sister glided over, looking like she just stepped out of a bridal magazine, champagne silk dress, a sparkling ring on her finger, and that same familiar gleam in her eyes when she spotted me. "You look cozy," she said, eyeing my simple black dress with a tight smile. "You've always had such basic taste. Simple. Practical. Frugal." Every word was just a polite way of saying small. I just smiled back, "Good to see you, too." The table buzzed with chatter already. Congratulations for my niece landing an internship at a PR agency, praise for my cousin's boyfriend getting promoted at a bank. I nodded when people glanced my way, but no one asked what I'd been up to. No one ever did. It had been decided long ago that I wasn't part of the family's success story. I was the oddball, the independent one, the lone wolf who chose freedom, because obviously, I couldn't snag a husband. I sipped my water and let them chatter over me. Sometimes that was easier than fighting an uphill swim. By the third course, the jabs started slipping in. Uncle Jeff leaned in with a laugh, "Still driving that old Civic?" "I swear that thing's got more miles on it than Dad's lawnmower." Laughter followed, not mean, just the usual kind of condescension that somehow felt comfortable. Someone else added, "Cassie always loved a good bargain bin. Remember those DIY Christmas gifts? Who even makes hand soap from scratch?" "Oh, honestly," my sister jumped in with a fake sigh. "She's so grounded, you know? Never let the pressure of success get to her." She turned to her fiancé. "She's never cared about appearances." I stared at her across the table, right through that flawless smile. She was trying to impress him by putting me down, and he was playing along, or so I thought. Then he turned to me, tilting his head with genuine curiosity. Wait, Cassie Delaney, his brow furrowed. Delaney Capital? I saw your name on a jet last weekend. My sister blinked, caught off guard. I saw a Gulfstream G650 on the tarmac while scouting honeymoon spots in St. Lucia, he went on. The concierge mentioned the owner was based in Seattle. I thought it was a coincidence, but you could feel the room change. Forks paused midair. Wine glasses frozen mid-sip. I looked up slowly, met his eyes, and said, calm and clear, that's me. A beat, then another. My cousin's jaw dropped. My mom's eyes narrowed like she was trying to reprocess everything she thought she knew. My sister went pale, really pale. Her fiancé blinked, lips parted, like he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words. Finally, he managed, wait, you're the one who closed that deal with Eastern Freight last year? That was a massive merger. I said nothing. Didn't need to. The truth was already louder than anything I could say. My sister laughed awkwardly. She's joking, then quieter, right. I stood up slowly, folded my napkin, and set it neatly on my plate. Actually, I have an early flight tomorrow. I should get going. But dessert's not even out yet, Mom said too quickly. I could feel every eye on me as I made my way around the table. People who'd spent years ignoring me suddenly desperate to see what I was really about. I wasn't there to help them rewrite their version of me. As I reached the garden gate, I caught someone muttering under their breath, she owns a private jet. No one followed me, and I didn't glance back. The walk to my car felt longer than usual, maybe because the silence trailing behind me hung thick like smoke, or maybe it was the strange lightness in my chest, like I'd just dropped a heavy burden for the last time. I slid into the driver's seat, closed the door, and just sat there for a minute, hands resting on the wheel, staring straight ahead. The porch light still glowed softly behind me. Inside that house, my sister was probably spinning a fresh story to explain it all away. Maybe I'd hit the jackpot. Maybe I was some secret partner. Maybe everything was exaggerated, anything to keep her as the family's leading lady. But this time, the narrative had shifted, and she wasn't the one writing it. Honestly, I didn't care if they believed it or not. I wasn't fishing for their approval anymore. But it hit different because it wasn't me saying it, it came from someone they respected, someone they wanted to impress. That somehow made it undeniable. For once, they had to face who I really was, not the version they'd decided I'd always be. I didn't need that moment. I hadn't planned for it, but it arrived like a tide, steady, unstoppable. I drove home in silence, windows down, the cool night air brushing my face. There's a freedom in no longer having to explain yourself, in finally stepping out of a space that was never meant to hold you. Later that night, around midnight, I got a text. It was from my sister's fiancé. Sorry if tonight was awkward. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Just wanted to say, I respect what you've done. A lot. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, thanks. I'm used to awkward. That was clarity. He read it right away and replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was enough. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, a quiet, blank canvas, memories painted themselves without asking permission. I thought about being 12, sitting on the back porch steps while my sister's birthday party happened inside, a party I wasn't invited to because it was for her friends only. I helped Mom bake the cake, but no one saved me a slice. I thought about prom night, watching from the window as my cousin laughed and posed for pictures with family in the front yard. I wasn't invited. No one asked if I had a dress. I thought about Dad, long gone now, who used to tousle my hair and say, she's the practical one. The other one's the pretty one. Small words. Small cuts. Over years until you bleed from places no one ever sees. The next morning, I got a short text from Mom, sharp, clipped, why didn't you ever tell us about your business? I didn't answer, not out of spite, but because that question wasn't really about curiosity. It was about control, about rewriting history so they wouldn't have to admit how easily they'd dismissed me all those years. My silence was the only honest answer. By noon, a cousin I hadn't talked to in over a year sent a cheerful message about grabbing coffee and catching up. Then another. Suddenly, I was interesting. Suddenly, I had value, but I'd waited too long for those invitations. They didn't mean a thing anymore. They weren't about knowing me, They were about being near a story that had changed. I declined politely every time. No anger. Just clarity. 2 days later, my assistant confirmed the St. Lucia jet had been prepped for a new chartered. I booked a last-minute seat, not because I wanted to run away, but because I'd earned the right to leave some things behind. Sitting in that cabin, a glass of mineral water in my hand, glass of water in hand, I gazed out over the endless blue stretching beneath the wing. The sun caught the edge of the plane just right, a sharp line of light slicing through soft clouds. I smiled, not because I was flying first class, but because I was flying free. Not every battle needs to be fought out loud. Sometimes the strongest move is to simply walk away, to leave the stage mid-show and let the crowd sit with their quiet. For years, I thought my value came from proving them wrong. Now? I know better. My worth was never tied to their approval. It's in every line of code I hammered out alone in that cramped apartment when no one believed in me. It's in every team I built, every choice I made, every gamble I took when failure felt like the only sure thing. It's in how I refused to let bitterness take root, even when they gave me every reason to. It lives in my calm, in the quiet strength I carry. I used to think closure meant having the last word, explaining myself so clearly that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see me. But closure isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just a quiet flight away from people who never bothered to look beyond the story they'd already written about you. It's the soft click of a door closing behind you, not slammed, not dramatic, just final and clean. My family still talks. I know they do. They rewrite the story, make me a mystery, maybe even a villain. Maybe I changed, maybe I got cold, maybe I forgot where I came from. Let them, because I don't live in their version of me anymore. I've outgrown it. I don't need to be understood by people who never showed curiosity. I don't need applause from a table I was never truly invited to. I don't need anyone to say, "We were wrong about you." I already know they were. What I needed, and fought so hard for, was peace, and I found it the moment I stopped trying to squeeze myself into a shape they could recognize. They'll keep speculating. They'll keep talking. But I don't owe them answers. I live in spaces they'll never step into. I build things they'll never see. I make decisions free from their echoes. And that, in its own quiet way, is power. Sometimes, the most radical healing isn't about revenge or confrontation. It's simply living fully on your own terms, letting them sit with the silence of what they missed. I didn't show up that night to prove anything, but they saw it anyway. Not because I demanded it, because truth doesn't need a microphone. It just needs a moment, and when it comes, you don't flinch. You don't perform, you just stand still, as you are, and let the silence speak.